Nikki. Welcome to the show. This is Talking with Your Doctor. I'm Dr. Shannon Tour. I would like to thank my engineer today, Zuleika. Thank you for being here. I'd also like to thank Roger Guerra and Veronica and David for providing the signal here for us today. Today, my guest is Dan Gallagher.
Hello.
He's been a frequent guest on this show.
I have.
So we'll just do a quick introduction. You are a reality therapist now.
Yes, I am.
You did work as a psychologist with the military as well as in the
Military
civilian world.
and a lot of veterans. A lot of veterans.
A lot of veterans.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to invite you on the show today is because we are starting an exciting new stage of opening up our country.
Right?
The kids are finally going back to in-person schooling.
Yes.
We haven't had in-person schooling here for nearly 3 years. There have been some schools that were allowed to, on a trial basis, open up and have some classes in person and some classes online. But really, these kids have been out of school, out of their social circles for nearly 3 years since COVID began. So obviously, that's going to create a lot of concern, a lot of possible psychological effects on the kids as well as the families.
Definitely.
Especially since we know that in other countries, when you first open up the schools, you're going to get little outbreaks of COVID. So parents are concerned about COVID. I'm sure the kids are concerned about COVID. The kids are socially anxious, I'm sure, because they haven't been in this kind of setting for a while.
Right.
So parents have to keep them calm and try and get them in the right mindset. But really, nobody knows what's going to happen when we open up the schools, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of an idea of what we may expect to see
Sure.
when the schools open with both the families as well as the children.
So I did research yesterday. I found it extremely interesting. I found a wealth of information from some of the best therapy schools in the United States. I found things in all over other countries. Back to school. This would be titled COVID-19 Back to School Fears and Questions. The first thing that comes up is that what you said is that 3 years has mostly been spent with parents. As children had to stay home, parents were becoming laid off. So this became a nuclear family that was very tight. There was very little socializing with other children. Children learn socialization, what's right and wrong, from their parents, but they really get indoctrinated by other children. When you do something wrong with other children, they simply don't play with you anymore.
Right.
So that
and they make everybody your enemy.
Exactly. So
Don't play with so-and-so, they're mean.
And now we've had 3 years of just children just staying with their parents and not doing any of the normal socializing that would happen from the in the schools.
Correct.
The first thing I put is parents will fear their children will contact COVID. So COVID-19 is still out there.
It is still out there.
Parents are still worried.
Yeah.
Very young children, pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, they're very worried about them. A lot of them
Correct.
can't take the shots. They're
Right.
worried about
Right now it's from 5 years up.
right people
Yeah.
who don't take the shots, people who do take the shots. Especially the younger children, which, as I just said, cannot get the shot. So there's a great deal of fear on the parents' part. Young children who have been out of school for 2 years to 3 years will fear separation anxiety. So now it goes
From
the
the
reverse.
parents.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it goes the reverse. Instead of always being you remember grandparents and parents remember the first day of taking their child to kindergarten and how that child clung to them.
Right.
Because that was the parents were grandparents were their whole world.
Right.
Now we have the same type of separation anxiety happening all over again with middle school, even with high school, but mainly with lower grade schools.
And those that never got to attend school because they were too young when the
Right.
epidemic started, and now it's
Right.
few years that they haven't even ever been in school, and they should have been.
Exactly. Older kids, high school, they'll simply show bravado and deny any risk, which in some ways is worse because if they don't reconnect well to their children, or if they just came from um, a secondary education to high school, then
Uh-huh.
they've lost all their friends. So there's no connection to start. They have to start making bridges, reestablishing themselves, new teachers, new administration, new
New
schools,
students, yeah.
and dealing with the fears of COVID at the same time.
Right, because some have already gone from middle school to high school, elementary school to middle school, and that's a big jump,
Absolutely.
especially when you don't have your group that is going along with you.
Right. Big jump in normal times. And you have parents who have decided, because of the way the world has become now, or the United States has become now, that they are going to simply still homeschool their children right through high school. So
Uh-huh.
now you have one student going back and maybe three of his friends being homeschooled.
Right, right. Why can't I be homeschooled?
Right.
Well, sometimes mom and dad have to go back to work.
Exactly.
Or need to go back to work, whether they want to or not. And they can't be home with their children to homeschool them.
Absolutely.
So that puts more stress and anxiety on the parents, feeling bad that they can't do what their friends' parents are doing.
So in the last 3 years, social interaction has definitely stunted them. Acting out and fights will develop over interactions.
Uh-huh.
How high school older kids express themselves is more physically. Younger kids will simply act out in many ways. An 8-year-old may wet his.
You think there could be some regression
Absolutely.
to bedwetting
Right.
and
Right.
and little
Doing anything and everything.
crying out? Yeah,
Anything and everything to get back to their parents.
yeah,
Learning will suffer because as the social interactions change, as teachers have to deal more with the personality problems, less likely are they going to be able to deal with the education itself.
and there's a lot to catch up on.
So the biggest thing educators are worried about is a whole generation of young people becoming adults without the any job skills at all.
Right,
And
socialization, how to get along with adults as well as other children,
and going to
or
college without
young
the
adults, I should say.
right,
Yeah.
going to college without the skill to be able to handle it.
Right, because not all the children here, not all the young adults here stay here to go to college. Some of them travel off to other countries to go to
Absolutely,
college.
absolutely.
And it's not just the expats' children, it is also locals that can afford it. Will send their kids to the U.S. or to other Latin American countries or Spain or whatever to get an education.
And with the last 3 years of a fear factor about everything that's going on in COVID, most of these young adults probably will choose colleges closer to home
Right.
and actually stay home while they go to college. They won't have. So 18 years old is the ambition to do things on your
Right.
own, to spread your wings. That may be very underdeveloped. So 18-year-olds act like 15-year-olds, 15-year-olds act like 12 years old. So when you're trying to get kids off to college and get them to the best college, maybe the father's a doctor and he wants to send them to Massachusetts,
Right.
and they're in Illinois. These children may not be prepared for it, and they may find that they've paid a three-month or 4-year tuition, and the kid's back on the doorstep in 2 days.
Right, right. They just can't handle
Absolutely.
the change. Do you think also maybe it'll be a little bit of fear that something could happen to one of the parents while they're gone, or
Yes.
grandparents, or brother or sister that's in a younger grade could get really sick?
That's a really excellent point. So COVID works both ways. So while the children are being told to be safe from COVID and wear masks and stay away from people, that creates a fear in the children that other people and adults and even relatives can give you something that's bad. Now you're going to try to send them back to school, and the caregiver for the last 3 years exclusively has been parents. And now you have them absolutely worrying and thinking every minute of all day, what happens if my father or mother catches COVID? I mean, most children in America have heard of one extended family or relative that's caught COVID,
Uh-huh.
and a good deal of them have heard that person's died of COVID.
Right.
So to go to school and have those thoughts in your head.
Exactly. I'm sure it's going to make it harder to learn, harder to concentrate, harder to study, harder to leave the nest,
Absolutely, yes.
hoping that,
Yeah.
what do I do? How fast can I get home
Right.
if one of my
Right,
family members get sick?
absolutely. So you're going to see an awful lot of children act up. You're going to see and want to push the teachers to go home. You're going to see an awful lot of high school students that simply leave school. If they have friends, they'll just stay in the park because they don't want their parents to know. So there's going to be an awful lot of children that just aren't going to adapt to school, where before you'd get an average of 6 or 7%. I think the average is, my opinion, is going to be closer to 20.
Wow,
maybe
that's a high
25.
percentage.
Very high percentage.
Well, there's also kids that are going to feel inadequate because learning online is definitely not the same as learning in a face-to-face setting, and a lot of them weren't doing the work, or they just didn't understand the work. They're so far behind in the schoolwork, so when they go into the grade that they're supposed to be in and they're not thriving and they're not understanding the work, that's going to be another factor that they have to deal with.
Absolutely. And the other factor to go along with that is you always have the high 10%ers, the 10%ers that create vaccines, the 10%ers that go to the moon, the 10%ers that are very high. What drives them is competition.
Right.
Sitting alone at a computer getting A's because you have a high intellect doesn't drive you to excel. What drives you to excel is competing in science clubs and that
Against each other in class.
and that's all disappeared. So now are the overachievers no longer overachievers?
Right.
Are the underachievers no longer willing to even try?
Right.
I mean, this will be studied for many years. This generation will be studied in the next and the next. I'll be too old to do it, but that's fine. But
I'm sure you're going to keep up.
I am doing with a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists. We've formed our own teams to try to understand this before the new diagnostic manual comes out, to try to add some things about, especially children. There'll be a quarter of it on children.
There's going to be some new diagnostics
geez, yeah.
for this type of thing.
Yes.
I mean, we're not quite talking like a Stockholm syndrome where
No,
they need to,
no.
but it's that fear of imminent death for a lot of these kids, because they were just hearing, such and so died. This
Right.
person got really sick and ended up in the hospital. This person died. It makes them not want to go out of the house just
Right.
in case they get sick, or in case, because one of the campaigns was protect yourself to protect your family. So they're going to feel guilt if they get sick and they bring it
Yes.
home.
Yes. You mentioned Stockholm syndrome. This may be cause and effect, but it is very close to a Stockholm syndrome. It's very close to being captive, to being only feeling responsible for your own family,
Yeah.
not worried about anybody else. And now we're sending them out to school where they have to interact and worry about everybody else, including when they come home. And how has their parents coped?
Right.
I've heard from other psychologists, some parents are going to go home, demand that they take off all their clothes so they can wash them and take a
Right.
shower,
Right.
so they don't come home with COVID because they're barely having a subsistence existence, and now they finally got jobs.
Yeah.
So,
And they
it's-
can't have quarantine for 10 days. They'll lose their jobs.
It's not going to stop. That's
Yeah.
the biggest problem. Is COVID has eased somewhat. I keep asking when the masks are going to end because I
Right.
can't stand the
We
mask.
still don't
Yeah.
know. We still don't know.
But COVID, the interactions and reactions from COVID are going to last a very long time, and they're going to have this generation, unless the parents and some I know are doing best practices and have thought outside of the box, because this isn't ordinary. COVID is nothing that we've ever experienced before. Staying out 3 years
Right.
most of school is nothing we've ever experienced before. Everybody losing their job, a government that says stay home.
Stay
None
home.
of this has
Yeah.
ever happened before.
Yeah.
We can do a little
Not
study.
since like the early 1900s, and most of us were not around for that.
We can do it. We have done studies with 1918 and the
Right.
pandemic that was very close to this was called flu. However, we were farming communities.
Uh-huh.
So we could isolate. We were used
Right.
to being alone. We were used to keeping our kids out of school so they could help us. So nothing of the 1918 pandemic has prepared us for this, and nothing in that pandemic has shown us a way to go.
Right, we're learning. We're learning
We're
from this.
learning as we go.
And hopefully we'll handle the next, because there will be a next
Oh, yes,
eventually.
yeah,
We
yeah.
are learning to handle the next one
Yeah,
in a better manner, hopefully.
Most scientists and doctors who have joined our group say that there will be a continuous level of this type of COVID-like events. You
Right.
know, will it be worse or better? I mean, a great deal of the country and all countries now have the COVID shots. Will we finally get to a point of, herd immunity? We don't know yet.
Right.
But what we do know is that this, what they've known for a long time is these superbugs were growing
Yeah.
all over. In hospitals, the stuff they used to stop infections wasn't working anymore.
Not working, yeah.
Stronger and stronger. So most scientists knew something was coming. I don't think anybody thought this would be.
I don't think
No.
anybody could imagine that it would be like,
No.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the movie Breakout.
Yes.
I think it had Dustin Hoffman.
Yes,
and
yes, it did. It was very good.
It was-
and very similar to
it's
this.
similar, yeah.
Yeah, nobody's a Nostradamus whoever predicted something like, or maybe Nostradamus did it for all
Who
I know.
knows?
So usually in a new school and school year, most kids worry only about making new friends.
Right.
Will a teacher like me? Will I now that's all gone, and the biggest worry is, will I get sick? Will my friends be back at school with me?
Right.
Will I need to wear a mask for forever?
Yeah. What else? Am I never allowed to hug my friend anymore? Am I never going to is alcohol and gel spray going to be everywhere for
Right.
the rest of?
The biggest thing that worries scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists is if they start going back to school and start regulating behavior and coming back to normal, will another type of COVID shut schools again?
Yeah.
If that happens, there's no resiliency left in children. I mean, there's always some resiliency on different things, but not about COVID. There's no resiliency left. If another one came and they had to be out of school again, how the percentage of kids that could not start over is going to be pretty high.
Right.
So that's, to us, that's the biggest worry is government has said in the United States, we're going to just keep the schools open while we're all,
Isolating the sick students.
we're all scientists. That is the best answer I've heard.
Yeah.
Because from a psychological point of view, if you get these kids 6 months in making new friends, liking the teacher, liking going to school, liking going home, and all of a sudden you close them up again, there'll be some kids that'll be destroyed, some kids that won't ever recover, and some kids that will, a lot of kids will go back into their shells and never be able to recover out of this shell. Listen, there's plenty of work for psychologists and therapists. They call me all the time to go online and do these therapy things, especially with children, try to help them. I do have 2 hospitals I volunteer with through WhatsApp. I was mainly helping the doctors and the nurses and everybody who was working early on with COVID-19 to help them cope. They were having a problem. And now a lot of the hospitals that deal with children, especially in Boston, are now asking me to start giving them best practices and
Yeah.
things. I had to turn to 100 of my friends and colleagues so that we would, that's where we created
Making guidelines and making
best
plans.
practices. Yes.
And, yeah.
Yes, the best practices.
What kind of advice for a parent that is finding their child is having extreme separation anxiety, just scared to death to go back to school because scared they're going to get sick or scared something's going to happen at home while they're gone?
But that's a really excellent question, and I think I can answer partially, but it will depend on the parents and child. If the parents are very trusted, if the child has spent the last 3 years thinking of the parents as, I don't mean to be blasphemous, but godlike figures that kept them
Uh-huh.
alive, they will trust in the parents' view. There may be, one of the things they may have to do is come sit with the child. A
Right.
lot of schools allow parents to sit with the child for a day, 2 or 3, so the children see that nothing's going to happen
Right.
to them. So that's a big issue. Trust is a big issue. If the parents have done the best they can to gain their trust, but driving them to school, spending a little more time before they go in their classes, walking them to class, walking them around the school before school starts, they can get permission to see that everything's the same.
Right.
The cafeteria is the same. Introducing them to new teachers or just the old teachers
Right.
to make them feel comfortable that COVID is not scary in school and it hasn't changed much.
Right.
That's the biggest advice I can give.
Because it's going to be totally different. They're going to be going in required
Right.
to clean their hands, required
Right.
to wear their mask, required to distance.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a different experience.
Yes, and the better schools will do it well, and the poorer schools will do it absolutely horrendous. And parents need to be aware of that. And the biggest thing also is, I know it will be difficult. Some parents work late hours,
Yeah.
but get your boss to invest in the fact that you can take your lunch break later, so you are there when they come home, even if they're teenagers, there when they get settled, and then leave and go back to work. So they know there's a physical presence. Ask them about their day. Don't just go there to show your face and then leave. Ask them how they're doing. Grandparents are going to be a really important element, even from here. I imagine there's an awful lot of grandparents that are going to start or already started getting calls about kids. I have, about kids that are your grandparent kids that are scared to death to go back to school.
Yeah.
Grandparents have a trusted place. We are very lucky in that we disciplined our kids and we said the hell with it with our grandkids. We said, I can do anything I want, and it's the parents that'll have to take them home and deal with. Sometimes it's payback because our kids gave us so much help. But grandparents who are called, reassure them that nothing's going to happen. Reassure them. I imagine grandparents have been called much more often, so because the grandchildren want to know they're alive.
Yeah.
You know, and have questions for the parents, and the parents say, well, let's call grandpa, let's call
And
grandma.
grandparents have been through a lot of tough situations. They've been through maybe not
Yes.
this exact thing,
Yes.
but they've been through other things, and they
Yes.
can kind of set the mind at ease. I mean, the Cold War,
Yes.
hiding under desks
Right,
and
right.
having bomb shelters, they've
Right.
gone through some stuff.
Exactly. So, but grandparents, don't talk about what you've been through, that war is much worse than this. Don't use the fact that they can handle this because of all the things you have. Don't give them examples.
Right.
Just say that I know you're a strong, tough person. Your father loves you. Your mother loves you. Your grandfather, grandmother, uncles love you. You can call me anytime that you're worried. A lot of kids take phones home from school. A lot of the therapists I talk to.
You can text me. You can call me. Yeah.
A lot of the therapists are going to allow those children. A lot of schools, the better schools, are going to allow those children to keep the phone with them.
Right.
If they see they're starting to get stressful, they will go down to the psychologist, and together they'll have a communication and make the phone call. When we have individual education plans, it's for kids that really struggle.
Right.
And we're talking about maybe the 10% in school. Now I think 30 or 40% are going to need to see that therapist more often.
And teachers are going to have a harder job to do.
Exactly. And teachers are going to look for psychologists and the people in school to allow that. Teachers never liked disruption and never liked a kid who would have to leave. I think that's going to be part of the school curriculum. They're not leaving 5 at a time, but leaving 1 at a time. Also groups after school, or groups during lunch, just sitting and talking about how they're feeling with a trusted teacher.
Yes.
And what's going on to set them up for the next class.
We would assume that teachers are being trained to handle different things that are going to come up, COVID
Yes.
infections and
Right.
psychological issues and anxiety.
But if you if you've got a lot of school-age children that will go with your child to school, have groups there.
Yeah.
Talk about what they fear. Have some trusted adults there. You know, you could probably get a person, a layman, who knows psychology to sit with them. But let's start now. Let's
Yeah.
not start 2 days before school. Let's get them trusting now. Let's get them good teachers are probably calling them and letting them know that everything's going to be all right.
Sounds like, yeah, that's the most important thing. Right now, we're going to take a musical break. Adele, Set Fire to the Rain is what we're going to listen to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
To stand in your arms without falling to your feet. But there's a side to you that I never knew. All the things you say, they were never true. And the games you play, you would always win. But I set fire to the rain. Watch it pour as I touch your face. When it burn, will I cry? 'Cause I heard it screaming out your name. Your name. When I lay with you, I could stay there. Close my eyes, feel you here. Forever, you and me together, nothing gets better. 'Cause there's a side to you that I never knew. All the things you'd say, they were never true. And the games you play, you would always win. But I set fire to the rain. Watch it pour as I touch your face. When it burn, will I cry? 'Cause I heard it screaming out your name. Your name. I set fire to the rain and lock us into a place. When it felt something died, 'cause I knew that was the last time. Sometimes I wake up by the door. That heart you gone must be waiting for you. Even now when we're already over, I can't help myself from looking for you. I set fire to the rain. Watch it pour as I touch your face. When it burn, will I cry? 'Cause I heard it screaming out your name. Your name. I set fire to the rain and lock us into a place. When it felt something died, 'cause I knew that was the last time.
And we are back with my guest here today, Dan Gallagher. We're talking a little bit about kids going back to school this coming week and the
Yes.
fears that both the parents and the children may be having,
Yes.
and some tips to get through this.
Yes. So some of the things that some of my child psychologist friends have talked about, I've heard from children already. Some parents have already taken the action. A lot of psychologists have done group therapy instead of individuals, have them so kids talk to kids. It's it's more important they talk about their fear with each other. Psychologists can relieve some fear, but children can relieve much fear.
You think the peer groups help a lot?
Absolutely. You got to start them in school, and you got to keep them going for at least this school year, maybe quite a few. So one of the questions, so we had a questionnaire, what are the children asking? I've given you some, but one of the questions is, if I get sick, will I get sick, I'm sorry, if my friends hug me or shake my hands? So they're basically getting told to stay 6 feet apart from everybody.
Right, distancing.
Kids, grade school, kindergarten, they don't stay 6 feet apart from
And they don't understand personal space or not
No,
hugging or
no.
not touching.
No.
Yeah.
Second thing is, will I get sick if I get sick, will it be my fault when people die? So they're
Yes.
worried that some teacher, they'll have COVID-19 and the teacher will get sick, and even though the teacher might have comorbid conditions, that teacher dying, they're very worried about it.
It being their fault.
And we're very worried about how that child will handle it.
Right.
And who's taught, listen, the most important thing for grandparents here, who's talking to that child and who's giving them logic to replace fear. That's the biggest thing that we are now that we're all healthier again. That's our biggest requirement based on honor, is we get this generation of children to feel safe again and go out in the world and start having good lives and getting married and everything. This year, next year, and maybe the third year will be the years where we determine what kind of generation of adults are going to be there.
And what kind of kids they're going to raise.
Absolutely,
Because of
yes.
their own,
Yes.
stunted
Yes.
emotional and
Growth.
educational
Yeah.
growth. Yeah.
And it's not just children. I mean, parents worry about all of the same things. Especially parents, what if they get sick? What do I do with my child? Where can my child go? I mean, a lot of, I talk to a lot of grandparents here. We all have pictures. We all whip them out faster than anything we've ever done in our life to show each other our beautiful grandparents, or our beautiful grandchildren.
Yeah.
But there are parents that don't have anybody.
Right.
What do they do if they get sick? What happens to their children? Does the state take them over? That's an awful example
Right,
of
no.
something happening.
Yeah. And more than likely here in Panama, at
Right,
least,
right.
the children are going to be quarantined along with the parents. If there's nowhere to go, no one to take care of the child, then they'll have to stay as separate as they can. But the children will also probably
Right.
have to quarantine.
When we first started, all of us, Italian, Irish, German, all of us who came here, felt safe in clusters. We didn't know
Right.
the language. So if one got a tenement, then every tenement in that neighborhood would become, I was in an Irish tenement.
Right.
The police officers were Irish.
Right.
The church was Irish. The school was Irish.
A giant family.
Giant family. Well, Panamanians do that here.
They do.
They do the giant family. That's something that we need again.
Yeah.
I know now the giant families are extended. I'm a grandparent of 3 young people and live here.
Yep.
So what can I do? Well, certainly more phone calls. It's going to be their summer. Invite them out if you can afford it here. We're
Right.
going to do that.
It is safe to travel.
It is
with
safe to travel.
taking your proper hygiene
Right.
measures.
Go, if you can afford it, go get them. But
Yeah.
give them some time, or take them camping. Give them some time
Yeah.
away from the very place where they had to stay for nearly 3 years, their
Right.
house, where it became a prison instead of a lovely environment.
Right.
So that's us. Call them more often. Don't wait for them to call you. Just ask them how they're doing, even if they're teenagers and they grunt. A grunt could mean, or after that, you just say, listen, Ted, I'm here for you. That's all you got to know. I love you, and anything you feel, I want to know about it.
Don't
I'm
force
here
them
for you.
to talk.
Don't
Yeah.
force them.
Yeah,
Don't
just let
force
them
it. Yeah.
internalize it, and if they need you, just let them know that you're there.
Absolutely. So one of the things is we know that the younger the student, the more parents can quiet their fears with common sense. Common sense is really great on young kids. I think as teenagers they start losing the common sense. I certainly know I lost common sense, and my
At
wife
least logic, and still some
and
logic.
logic and critical thinking.
Yeah.
And I know my wife thinks that I've lost common sense. But just using smaller sentences that they understand, put it in their language. Don't use big words. And geez, please, don't say you're being foolish.
Yeah. Don't say
act-
you're being stupid or
don't act like
silly.
don't act like their fears don't mean anything. Fears have no logic.
Yeah.
Fears is an internal mechanism. It's fight or flight. Don't say any of those things. Just
Right.
hug them and tell them you're there for them, and nothing's
Right.
going to happen.
Right, when the kids would come into the clinic and, I dress up and you've seen my
Yes.
uniform, my
Right,
scrubs,
right,
my jacket,
right.
my helmet and everything. A parent will bring the child in. The child's already scared to death of doctors
Yes.
usually.
Yes.
And so, just try to go out there. The parent will start saying, if you cry, I'm going to smack you. Or
Yeah.
whatever. Don't.
Yeah.
They're scared. This is even scarier looking. Just try to tell them this is my astronaut uniform.
Yes.
Nothing different here. You're fine.
Yeah.
And, because logically, I understand they're scared to death.
Absolutely. And you're doing exactly what I want parents and grandparents to do. Help them feel safe. Start thinking of ways you can do to help them feel emotionally safe. If they feel emotionally safe, then they'll feel physically safe. But you've got to start now. You can't ignore this any longer. We had everybody isolated, so
Yeah.
it was very easy to do phone calls, and all us grandparents felt, well, they're safe. They're at home. Their parents are with them. They're safe, so we don't have too much to worry about. They'll get shots or they won't get shots, but they'll stay safe. They'll
Right.
wear masks.
As
Now,
an adult, at the beginning of the pandemic, I, had to do sort of the same thing they were going to be doing, is adapting.
right.
And I would wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, wondering if I forgot to wash something off before I came in the house,
Right.
and I might give it to my family member.
You, doctor, are almost the perfect example of children, in the sense that they will have all of those fears. You have it because of critical thinking. You know that seeing patients can be a dangerous thing.
And
with
we had
COVID.
no idea what
Right.
it was back then.
That's right. So
They are the same way. They have no idea.
exactly. So help them feel safe. Pre-K, the younger of them, tell them they are safe in school. The teacher will answer any questions and keep them safe. This is about having conversations with teachers. This is about having conversations if your child is especially fearful. It's about having conversations about exactly what your child is feeling and what might be the issues coming up in school.
Special needs children?
Special needs children, yes. Working on individual education plans with teachers, their biggest complaint, especially in inner city schools, is they never saw parents. They will love the fact. Don't think you're overprotective.
Overprotective.
They will love the fact that parents are coming now, are having meetings before school, want to visit the school, want to visit the teachers, want to let the teachers know exactly what the child is feeling, so the teacher one-on-one can help them with coping with the very things they fear the most. That's a really important, especially pre-K.
Yeah.
Pre-K, the mind is undeveloped, and it imagines things all the time, whether it's awake or not. That's why getting their attention from a teacher getting their attention is very hard. The mind wanders all the time. When I was
Right.
that way, or even later, my mind would wander outside to when the hell that damn bell was going to ring.
Yeah. When
which-
can I go out in the
which
playground?
Which took forever.
When's lunch?
Was not a great student.
Yeah.
Had to,
Yeah, no, you watch that clock. The
Yeah.
last 5 minutes were the
Oh
longest.
shit! And the longest was the last 5 minutes of getting out for summer.
Right.
That was the longest in history. So
The last day.
right.
Yeah.
So you gotta use critical thinking.
Get involved with
Yeah.
the teachers.
Oh,
Let them
yeah.
know if your kids are especially fearful of certain things.
Revamp the PTA. The PTA is
Yeah.
not going to work the way it did. The bake sales, none of that stuff is going to work. Have social things for children.
Yeah.
Have sitting around or sitting outside. Have
Going
a
to the playground.
playground.
Yeah.
That's what's going to work with children. PTAs need to evolve. If they don't evolve, they'll disappear because parents don't need baking to get a little bit of money for the band at school. They need their children to be mentally
Yeah.
safe and go on and have a good life.
Yeah, you don't need uniforms to play organized
No,
sports.
no.
You guys
No.
can get, 2 different color T-shirts,
Yeah.
which is relatively cheap,
Yeah.
and get
They
some
ha-
sports. I nearly started tearing up when I saw the kids down in David playing baseball.
Yeah. We now have to. COVID-19 has changed the world on how we react to it. We now have to change the world for children.
Yeah.
This is the next step. This hasn't been. I imagine there are a lot of parents and grandparents that have thought of this and are already thinking outside the box. But really, the only thing I've seen is the argument about whether a school will wear masks or,
Or
won't
not wear
masks
masks.
and sue each other.
Yeah.
We need to think about the individual child and
Yeah.
what we do. Or we'll have an awful lot of individual education plans where teachers will have to teach to the plan and not to their students.
And nobody's going to win.
Nobody's
Yeah.
going
I think here, definitely, at least for the first quarter,
Right.
they're going to be wearing masks in class.
Yes.
Most of the kids have adapted really, really well to a mask.
Yes.
Are they going to touch it, move it,
Yeah,
scratch? Yeah.
Parents and grandparents have colored those masks so they make them look like Superman and everything. The younger the
Yeah.
kid is,
Yeah.
the more they're much better. I do the BCP for the male and the BC they love the mask.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even see much scratching. It's become part of their face.
Right, right.
It really has. It's really amazing how adapted the kids are here, thanks to the Panamanian government and getting this done.
It was a struggle. I know a lot of kids hate having things
Yeah,
on their face.
yeah,
It took a
yeah.
while, but, for your youngest group of kids, nearly impossible. For your 2, 3, 4-year-olds, nearly
Right,
impossible
right.
that they'll leave it on for an extended period of
Yes.
time. But now you see them doing so much better. They come in, and some of them are just like, they'll wait for the exact moment you tell them to lower the mask, to look at their throats.
I have a friend of mine does wonderful painting at the Tuesday Market BCP, and he has a young daughter about 8 years old, and I sit right next to her, and she's decided she likes. I use my phone as a clicker to know how many people come through. She's decided she likes that, and she's taken it over for me.
Okay, that's neat.
But
Get them involved young.
right,
Yeah.
but he's designed masks for her, and
Yeah.
I never see her. After an hour, I'm annoyed at having to wear a
Right.
mask. I never see her think of anything like that.
Kids are so resilient
oh
that
boy,
way.
they really are.
But that's another great idea, though, as an activity for going back to school and decorate some masks for your kids to wear.
Absolutely.
Get disposable masks, just
Whatever.
get glitters,
right,
diamonds.
Right. I haven't
colors.
seen any schools saying they have to be uniform masks. They
Right,
have to be
right, that's true. I don't
and-
know yet. I
well,
don't know.
they have to be 95 masks, but nobody said anything. I mean, you can't have swear words or anything like that. But I think,
Well, definitely,
especially
yeah.
with kindergarten, you can decorate them in their favorite hero.
Yeah, even little stickers.
Yeah, stickers is
stickers on.
perfect. So, kindergarten to second grade, children are afraid of breaking the rules. That's the thing with children.
Yeah.
They're told very early on, don't break any rules, and they take everything to heart. A parent, grandparent's word is a bond. So, breaking any rules, and COVID makes them feel like if they got COVID, they will be punished.
Right.
So, and
I
some
think a
parents.
lot of people feel that way. Not just kids, but
Right.
adults too.
And some parents have actually done that, punished them for getting COVID. So those children will already be on my IEP spectrum for
Yeah.
having mental health issues. But
Well, yeah, if you're
don't-
getting blamed for getting sick,
Yes.
yeah.
well, it's been on television that this school, the governor didn't want this school to wear masks, so
Right.
then teachers got sick. Now, how do you think the students in that class start thinking? So if 2 or 3 of those students get sick, they won't know if they got it from the teacher or the teacher got it from them.
Exactly.
So now,
or if they gave it to their friends. Or,
now you
yeah.
have this inward feeling of sadness and fear that
I'm
it'll
sure
come
guilt.
out. And then if exactly, if the teacher dies, did I murder my teacher?
Yeah.
I mean, and they won't share that. You have to get them to open up. Kindergartners to second grade don't share those kind of fears and thoughts. They will wake up in the middle of the night and wet the bed and start screaming,
Right.
but they won't remember the dream. And you have to entice them to come out of their shells.
Yeah, especially if you see that they're acting out, they're not
Right,
wanting to go
right,
out, they're
right.
withdrawing, they don't want to go out and play with
Yeah.
other kids their age, they don't want to go get an ice cream or
Right.
do what they usually do.
Right. Excellent. All of those are excellent points. If they change behavior, there's a reason for it. Something is making them change their behavior. You have to be a detective, and then you have to be a therapist to help them get over it. That's an excellent
That
point.
and asking the teacher, have you noticed a change in
Right,
behavior? Have
right.
you noticed that my child is getting picked on, or that they had a problem with some other student? What's going on?
Right. Teachers will be very interactive this year in calling parents.
Yeah,
Please do not not answer them, because they will be seeing signs that COVID has made them change behavior. No teacher's going to remember the kids. It's
Yeah.
been 3 years.
yeah,
All the teachers have changed.
yeah.
You know, they've been going to school at home, so a second grader is now a fifth grader.
Yeah.
Some of them have graduated to junior high or high
Right.
school.
Left grade school, gone to junior
without
high,
ever
high school.
seeing them. So we have to really just make a concerted effort, especially grandparents.
Extended family, aunts, uncles, grandparents,
Exactly, everybody.
whoever it is
everybody.
that the child
Yeah.
trusts the most
Every-
outside of their
yeah,
parents.
Yeah. And even if you're in school, even if you don't know the child very well, if you see them crying in the corridor, you are an adult. You need to step up and ask them what's wrong.
Yeah.
And show you care. The more
Don't shy away from somebody
the-
else's kids.
Right. The more people that show they care, the more chance this child has to be normal again.
Yeah.
One of the last things we talked about, so we talked about grade school.
Uh-huh.
Middle school students may deny there's any risk. They're at a point with high school students who believe they're invulnerable. They're Superman.
Yeah.
That's why high school students race cars, take risks. They never believe that this will happen. Schools used to get the car where the student died in and
Right.
park it in front of the school.
Right.
It
It doesn't work as a deterrent.
It doesn't work as a
Happened to
deterrent.
that person, but it can't happen
Right.
to me.
It'll be not me. This
I'm
is
too
not
good.
happening to me.
Yeah, I'm too good
So
for that.
it'll be the same thing with COVID. They
Yeah.
won't believe that this is ever going to happen to them. But they will have inner fears. And if you start seeing those inner fears, if you start seeing them acting out, go let them see a counselor, even though, I don't care if you're taking a test, what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let them see it. If you see a tear in their eyes, say, why don't you go down? Don't say it in front of the class. Ask the student to step outside and say, why don't I'm going to call the counselor, why don't you go down and
Yeah.
talk? Or is there a favorite teacher
Teacher that you can
that's
talk
not
to.
working, or I'm going to have you go down so you can talk. You don't have to share it with
Yeah.
me, but just
Or
so
at
you-
lunchtime, let's talk. Or
Absolutely,
something.
absolutely. Teachers need to be sitting with their students during lunchtime, not the other
Yeah.
way around. In a teacher's lounge or something. Teachers are going to be one of the most important elements we've ever had in the history of the United States.
I think they always have been.
They always have, but they're going to be noticed and cherished.
They're going to have a hard job, and
Yes.
they just don't get paid enough.
No, oh no, God no.
They're watching your kids. They're both teacher,
Yeah.
parent, and
Yeah.
psychologist while they're there.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes nurse, because
Yeah.
not all schools have full-time nurses.
Yeah, and a lot of the worst type of parents make sure their kids go to school because they don't want to deal with them. They're home doing various things, and they don't want to deal with them, so they send them to school to act up. They don't care. And then when I used to have to go up there, I'd have to go up there as a counselor because the parents would refuse to take the kid home, which makes the school responsible for his safety.
Right. School
So,
can't do anything with
no,
the kid.
No,
Yeah.
So this is about vigilance and caring.
Yeah.
I've met so many grandparents here. I'm not worried about the caring from grandparents. I know they've raised good kids, Now we have to raise good grandkids.
And with the extended families here in Panama, the culture and everything like that, the parents and the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles and brothers and sisters are very involved in each other's lives, for the most part.
Absolutely.
So that's a plus.
Yes, it's a big plus here. But listen, care, and give hope. That
Yeah.
this is not going to last forever. You're not going to be like this forever. Care about them, give them hope.
And don't say so and so's bad because they got vaccinated, or so and so's bad because they didn't get
Right,
vaccinated. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has
That's
to
right.
follow.
Yeah, this is not an argument about what people have chosen.
Yeah.
This is just caring. Listen to your kids, though. One of the worst things, trained as a therapist, psychologist, is to listen, to hear the inner voice. A child will tell you something that's bothering him or her, but it won't be what's really there.
Right.
You have to spend enough time to really hear the deepest thoughts, not the surface thoughts.
Right. The surface might be I got in an argument with my best friend.
Right,
But
right.
why did you get in an argument?
Exactly.
There's something deeper.
Yeah, because my daddy says you didn't get
A COVID shot.
COVID shot, so you could kill something.
Yeah.
Something
So I can't play with you or whatever.
Something stupid.
Yeah.
Absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
And we need to overcome these feelings that it's them and us.
Yeah.
We're a whole society. People have always made choices about medical issues. It's never been as bad about those choices as it is now. People, when I took the measles shot, there were people then, I'm 75 at 5 years old, who didn't believe in the measles
Right.
shot. Their kids were okay. That has nothing to do with us. That's a conscious choice that is the parents.
Right.
And they have a right, an absolute right to choose.
Yeah. And for their children, they have an absolute right to choose, and for themselves as well, have an
Absolutely.
absolute right to choose what is best for them.
Absolutely.
But then again, you got to follow the consequences. You get sick, then they pull your
Yes,
child
yeah,
out of
yeah,
school, and you
yeah.
stay home too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't send your child to school
If they're
as you
sick.
said, if they have coughs. And I had COVID.
Yeah.
As you know, I had the
Yeah.
3 shots, but I got COVID. It was no worse than a mild flu. You took care of me and made sure I was okay. Minsa came down and checked to
Yeah.
make sure.
We just made sure that everything was going along well.
And I had the positive and the negative and stayed. But I was like a child. I kept thinking about all the people I made contact with
Right.
before I found out I was positive.
Right.
And I have friends who have heart attacks and have comorbid conditions. I wasn't scared for myself. I was scared to death about the people that
Exactly. You start
yeah.
to get that guilt,
Right.
that guilt and responsibility. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. Luckily, nobody got sick. And with all the shots, to be honest,
Yeah.
it was like a mild flu.
Yeah.
You know,
It wasn't fun.
it wasn't fun, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But it certainly was survivable, and it certainly was. I watched television. I ate the wrong things. My wife's in the States, so she couldn't chastise me.
Right.
I made
you,
sure
you
I
had
had
it okay.
I
Well, no,
made-
you had other people chastising
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
I made sure that I had plenty of ice cream. Ice cream is my big go-to.
Ice cream makes you
and,
feel so much better.
And I stayed the 10 days.
Yeah.
So
It's tough. It's tough to
yes.
keep to yourself for 10 days.
It's boring. It's boring. I love to read. I love to watch history, but it gets boring if that's the only thing
Yeah.
you've got to do.
Yeah.
I would go out to my porch. I have 2 dogs that kept me company.
Yes.
Even they noticed that something was different. about
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Even animals.
You're never leaving the house. You're
Yes.
not going and doing
Right.
stuff. You're not having friends over.
Even
They
your
notice.
animals.
They
yeah,
notice.
It's amazing.
It is. So we have a few more minutes. Is there anything that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. The only thing I would say is that what psychiatrists, doctors have noticed is an attitude with their patients
Uh-huh.
that's much more aggressive, and it seems like doctors are being blamed for whatever happens to their patients. There's been a change in attitude. As everybody knows, there's been a change in America
Yeah.
when it comes to that.
It changes the world.
Yeah.
I would have to say it's pretty much a worldwide phenomenon.
It is, and please don't annoy Dr. Shannon.
Please
She's-
don't come in and blame us for the mask rules.
she's she's a great lady who only gives good advice and wants to keep all of us healthy and alive. So all Dr. Lopez, all of the doctors here
Yeah.
are
We-
trying to do the best they can in a very difficult situation. They were the ones that stayed during COVID.
We stayed out there. We stayed active. We gave information, education.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
people got really mad at us. We're
And
taking
say-
away their rights,
and
but
you-
we had to do it.
And you saved lives.
And we hopefully saved
Oh,
lives.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
We hopefully saved
yeah.
lives. But just take that to heart. If you're feeling sick, if you got cold-like symptoms, stay home. Quarantine yourself for 10 days. It's difficult,
please.
but
Yeah.
you know what? You're going to make it easier on the rest of the
Yeah.
community
Right.
in the long run. It won't keep going around and
Right.
going around and going
Right.
around. We need to
Right.
to be more conscientious, especially now that everything's
Right.
opening up.
You don't have to pay for the test. Minsa will come right down if you do the phone call.
Yep.
They will give you prescriptions for medication that does help.
Yep.
And they will come back in 10 days to make sure you're negative.
Right.
So
and
they
they'll
were
check
ver-
on you periodically to make sure you're not getting any worse.
Mensa was very good
They
about
are.
that.
They are.
They
There's
are.
a lot of complaints, and look,
Yeah, well-
don't get down on Mensa
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they've had a lot of extra work,
Yeah.
a lot of extra
Yeah.
duties.
I have no complaints
Yeah.
about how Mensa treated me at all.
Yeah, Mensa has been really great. When we were in quarantine, my husband and I, because we were exposed,
Mm-hmm.
we stayed the entire 14 days. They came out, I believe, since it was like December of 2020, I believe they came out every single day. They
Yes,
called
yes.
twice a day to make sure
Yes.
we weren't showing any symptoms.
That's right.
Obviously, I had to wait to go back to work.
Yes, yes.
And, we got into contact with a lot of patients. After that, things started loosening up. Well, if you were wearing a mask and a face shield and, weren't
Yes.
in a closed space, then you're fine. So, just watch for symptoms. If you show symptoms, go test.
Yes.
So it was an evolution
Yes.
of how they were doing things.
And that's an excellent point. Mine was just a cold.
Right.
I felt the old term was yucky.
Yeah.
It was just a cold. But in this day and age, you make sure that's all it is.
Right. And
And
I've
that-
got a lot of people with cold-like symptoms. Half of them come out positive, half of them come out negative.
Right. But you need to check.
You do need to check. You need
Yes.
to protect those around you. You need to stay home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you use a private lab and you come up positive, go yourself and
Yes.
tell Mensa,
Yes.
here's my test. I'm positive. Put me
Yes.
on the list.
Yes, they do that. They're
Yeah.
They come. They speak English. Most of them.
Yeah.
If you tell them you don't
Yeah.
speak Spanish, I'm terrible at Spanish, and they are very caring.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
they,
not a blame thing. It's
Not
not
at
a
all,
shame on you
no.
for getting sick. It's
They actually treat you like they're proud of you for making sure nobody else gets
right.
sick,
Right.
which is wonderful.
So if your test comes out positive, go because there's at least a 4 or 5 day lag between when they turn in the
Yes.
test to Mensa from a private institution. Go
Well-
right away and show the paper.
Right. Mensa has a rapid test. So
They do.
Mensa took
They
the
do.
test. They gave me the other one, but they took the test and
Yep.
told me I was positive right there.
Yeah.
To make sure I didn't leave for a couple of days until the other test was
Right, to confirm the
right.
positive results.
They-
Right.
They did both of them. They did the throat,
Yeah.
and then they did a rapid
The
test.
rapid and the PCR.
Yeah.
And the PCR is the gold, but
Yes.
it doesn't always come up positive right away.
Right.
But the important thing is even if the rapid comes out and positive and the other comes out negative, you're still quarantining.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
the rules.
Quarantine is the safest thing you can do.
Yeah, yeah.
We all have friends that have comorbid conditions.
Yeah.
If you're not sure before you take the test, please stay away from people.
But
you know.
I would like to thank you for all your
Well,
valuable
you're welcome.
information today. I'd
Right.
like to once again thanks to Leica also for being our engineer.
Who is a very beautiful lady.
Yes, she
People,
is.
if you
We're
can't
very
s-
lucky to have her.
If you can't see her, she's a very beautiful woman.
And very, very
As is
smart woman.
as is Dr. Shannon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, anyways, we getting back to the close.
Sure.
This has been Talking with Your Doctor. I'm Dr. Shannon Tour. My guest today was Diane Gallagher, and we hope he'll come back on our show again soon and talk more with us.
Anytime, I really like it. So anytime. And it makes
so
me
much.
research.